When the First World War raged across Europe, the battlefields weren't the only places where resilience was tested. Back on the home front, ordinary families faced food shortages, rationing, and the urgent call to grow more with less. It was here, in backyards and allotments, that a quiet revolution unfolded. Families who had never seen themselves as farmers became custodians of their own soil. They produced astonishing harvests, often from small, poor plots of land. The question is how? How did these home gardeners, without the convenience of chemical fertilizers or modern tools, turn depleted ground into fertile fields capable of feeding millions? The answer lies in forgotten traditions, soil-building practices that were as resourceful as they were effective. And the remarkable truth is that these WWI-era methods still work today, offering modern gardeners simple, sustainable ways to revive dead soil and grow abundantly. The idea of the victory garden is often associated with the Second World War, but its roots run deep into the First. By 1917, shortages of imported food in Britain, France, and even the United States drove governments to encourage citizens to turn every patch of soil into a productive garden. Posters urged families to plant vegetables instead of flowers, schools established teaching plots, and vacant lots were converted into miniature farms. What made these efforts extraordinary was not just the scale, but the soil wisdom that emerged. Faced with scarcity, people rediscovered age-old methods of nourishing the land. In doing so, they built fertile soils capable of sustaining harvests year after year, even under stress. One of the most important traditions to resurface during WWI was trench composting. Instead of labouring over heaps or bins, families dug shallow trenches directly in their garden beds and filled them with kitchen scraps, weeds, and other organic waste. Covered over with soil, the materials decomposed in place, enriching the ground without hauling or turning. It was efficient, sanitary, and immensely effective, bringing nutrients straight back to where they were needed. Leaf mould also became a quiet hero of the home front. Municipalities encouraged people to rake and collect fallen leaves, which were piled up in corners of gardens or community spaces. Left for months, these piles transformed into a dark, crumbly material rich in humus. Unlike fresh compost, leaf mould didn't feed plants directly. Instead, it improved soil texture, water retention, and microbial life. Gardeners quickly learned that a bed amended with leaf mould held moisture better, resisted compaction, and yielded stronger crops. Kitchen scraps, even bones and peelings, were rarely wasted. Families boiled them for soups first, then buried or burned what remained to return minerals to the soil. In a time when nothing could be thrown away, the soil became the final recipient of every nutrient, cycling life back into the ground in a way modern landfills have long interrupted. Another forgotten tradition of World War I gardening was the deliberate use of crop rotation. Families understood that planting the same thing in the same spot depleted soil rapidly. By alternating legumes such as beans and peas with heavy feeders like cabbages and potatoes, they kept soils balanced. The legumes replenished nitrogen, while root crops loosened compacted earth and leafy vegetables pulled nutrients back toward the surface. Intercropping added another layer of resilience. Gardeners learned that pairing certain plants together strengthened both. A classic example was beans climbing among corn or peas thriving alongside brassicas. The legumes contributed nitrogen, while the taller crops offered structure and shade. These combinations didn't just save space, they actively rebuilt soil while producing more food. Green manures, or crops grown not to be eaten but to be returned to the earth, became a subtle but powerful weapon of the World War I homefront gardener. Mustard, clover and vetch were often sown after harvest, then dug into the soil before planting vegetables the following spring. This practice fed organic matter back into the earth, protecting bare soil from erosion and fueling microbial activity long before soil science became mainstream. Water shortages were as real a threat as food shortages during the war years, and gardeners adapted with ingenuity. One technique that surfaced was the use of buried porous clay pots, similar to the ancient Ola method. These vessels, sunk into the soil and filled with water, slowly released moisture directly to plant roots. In dry summers, they made the difference between thriving crops and withered beds. Mulching was another common-sense practice that wartime necessity elevated to a science. Grass clippings, straw, shredded newspaper and even old wool were spread across garden beds to hold precious moisture, suppress weeds, and slowly break down into organic matter. Mulched soil retained life-giving humidity weeks longer than bare ground, reducing the need for constant watering and helping crops survive unpredictable weather. Grey water use also became routine. Families collected leftover water from washing dishes, laundry or bathing and repurposed it in the garden. While care had to be taken to avoid harsh soaps, this practice ensured that no resource was wasted. On a community level, shared grey water collection systems supplied victory gardens that might otherwise have failed. What makes these First World War gardening traditions so powerful is their enduring relevance. In an era when climate stress, resource scarcity and the need for self-reliance are once again pressing, these methods offer tested solutions. Trench composting remains one of the easiest ways to return nutrients directly to the soil without extra labour. Leaf mould continues to be unmatched in its ability to enrich humus. Crop rotation and intercropping still stand as free tools for soil restoration. Green manures, mulch and water-conserving irrigation methods have only grown more valuable as gardeners face longer droughts and degraded soil. To apply these lessons today, one need not recreate the wartime hardship that birthed them. Start by burying your kitchen scraps instead of tossing them, layering fallen leaves in a corner to rot into gold, or sowing a quick cover crop at the end of a season. Use mulch to guard your soil, and find ways to reuse water when conditions are dry. Each of these actions echoes the wisdom of those who kept their families fed a century ago. More importantly, each one restores vitality to your soil, proving that the simplest traditions often yield the most profound results. The story of the First World War Homefront is not only about survival under pressure, but also about the rediscovery of practices that connected people more deeply to their land. 7 traditions: trench composting, leaf mould, waste recycling, crop rotation, intercropping, green manures and water-wise techniques made ordinary backyards into extraordinary sources of sustenance. They worked then, and they still work now, because they align with natural cycles rather than fighting against them. For today's gardener and history enthusiast alike, reviving these forgotten practices is both an act of remembrance and a step towards resilience. If you found this deep dive into First World War soil wisdom valuable, share it with others who care about both history and the future of gardening. And don't forget to subscribe to In the Beginning for more explorations of forgotten traditions that still shape the way we live, grow and survive. The past is not lost. It's waiting beneath our feet, ready to guide us again.